This is my Valarra project. It's based on a C6 Corvette. This video covers some of the components that went into the Valarra build. We'll start off with some of the audio. We have two 12-inch SCAR audio subs. They are 800 watt RMS, 12-inch. The model number is SVR-12. They will be powered by this mono-channel amp, 1500 watt RMS, SCAR audio. And then we have a 4-channel 1000 watt amp for the mids and highs. The mids are 8-inch DS18. And the highs are 3-inch. I 3D printed some brackets for both the mids and highs to adapt to the factory housing. There's a Zener diode soldered in line to prevent voltage spikes. Then we have a Zeus fastener to connect them to the car. To power the system, I designed and 3D printed a bracket that will mount on top of the battery. And then there's a clamp holding the fuse feed. I put it in a nylon braid. So the positive terminal is here. And then it will clamp here, go through the nylon braid, through the fuse box, and then out, down into the car. And this is for the ground, which is gonna be right here on the battery. You place this on top of the battery and then clamp it down with this, and then these lips hold it down. For wire, we have New Concept 0 gauge OFC for both the power and ground to run from the front of the car, through the fuse box, down the rocker panel to the trunk. From there, we'll have a distribution block with 4 channels. 2 120 amp channels. 2 of the channels are going to power both of the amps through that 8 gauge OFC wire. And then I bought 14 gauge wire to power the mids and highs. And I sized all of these wires based on the run and the amperage. I custom printed these holders that are going to hold the power wire, ground, airline, and LED light wires. And then in the trunk, we have a 20 amp hour SCAR audio battery. So why do we have a battery in the trunk? Well, with these two amps combined, that's 2500 watts RMS. I think without a battery in the back, it would have a substantial voltage drop. So it will be an aid in buffering some of the load. Not to mention we have a double terminal here, so we can go directly into here from the main battery and then go out into the distribution block. This is the equalizer, and it's going to be mounted where the factory ashtray used to be. I'm going to have my friend Kyle Wood help me 3D scan this. Then I'll design a bracket that will hold this equalizer, both amp gain knobs, and 4 buttons for the lighting system. So you can picture this except with this, and then 2 knobs under it, and then 4 buttons. Right above the ashtray, we have the head unit. The factory head unit is like 6 inches. This is a 10-inch screen. So what I had to do is buy adapter plates, and then from there design a bracket, which I 3D printed, that mates this head unit to the adapter plates. There's also there's a little bit of angle between this side and this side, so this bracket is a little longer. So when you're driving, this is tilted towards the driver more. And there's also a groove right there. So You can tilt the monitor up and down depending on the driver height. The reason I chose this head unit is because it has wireless CarPlay. So if you have an iPhone or an Android, you don't have to connect any cables. You can hook it up directly through wireless Bluetooth. And it also has an app for 360 cameras. The car will have a camera in the front bumper, rear bumper, and both of the mirrors. So I took the mirrors apart, drilled a hole, mounted the mirror, and I also put an LED that will light up when you unlock the car or when you turn on the rock lights. The head unit has inputs for left turn, right turn, and rear. So the C6 Corvette presented quite a challenge because not all the signals are 12 volts positive, which the head unit and most head units require. So reverse was fine. With reverse, you put it in reverse and there's a signal in the body control module sending out 12 volts that I can wire directly into this. But then suppose you turn on your left turn signal and you want this head unit to turn on this camera. Well, in this factory C6 Corvette, the signal wire is constant 12 volts positive, which drops to ground when you turn on the turn signal. So I did a little bit of research and the solution is a micro relay board. If you have a signal from the car that's 12 volts constant, that drops to 0 volts, your camera and head unit wants to see a positive 12 volt signal. Well, if you use a low trigger jumper, then you can use this trigger, which is ground, to send a positive 12 volt signal to the head unit. And similarly, I wanted the LEDs in the mirrors to turn on when the footwell lights turn on, except it uses a ground for a signal. So the switch ground instead of switched positive. So input 3 is for that, and it sends 12 volts to the LED. And this was terminated with a Doge 8-pin connector. And then I designed and printed this 3D bracket. So this will mount right here. And this will mount in a factory location in the passenger footwell. The distribution block in the back of the car will have 4 outputs, 2 for each amp, and 1 for the air suspension setup, and 1 for this relay module. The relay module is going to use 3 of the relays for the light setup, and the switches will be where the ashtray used to be, which will turn on and off. For lighting, I have I was gonna say 4, but now I realize I have 5 extra lighting components to the car. I have these rock lights. There's a total of 16. These are solid white. I mentioned earlier there's a LED under each mirror that turns on either when you turn on the rock lights or when you unlock the car, and they are triggered by the footwell lights. And then inside we'll have these red, green, blue 12-inch strips. There's 6 of them. They'll be operated by a remote. And then we have these runner LEDs, which are also red, green, blue. Similar remote. And then we'll have fog lights in the front. These are 4x6 LED. They have a high-low, so I'm gonna use factory wiring for them and design a custom 3D bracket to hold them. I'm gonna have jack screws mounted to the brackets so you can adjust the tilt up and down through the top of the bumper. I had a local shop laser cut some door sills, some engine cover plates, and some emblems. The factory car uses halogen bulbs for turn signals, and with the Valarra kit, everything is LED. So the flasher relay doesn't see enough resistance, and we have a rapid flash. So these will be wired in parallel to increase the load that the computer sees, so that the flash rate will be normal. And then there's several body components that use screws to mount to the body. And Valarra provided just plain old screws, but I thought we would go with something different. So I bought an array of screws to see what's out there as far as options. And I think I'm gonna go with this, it's burnt blue. And then the front of the car will have a silver diamond mesh. And the back of the car will have a black powder coated mesh. And then this is the winglet that Valarra provides for the end of the spoiler. But I wanted to do something different, so I'm designing a winglet that's got a little more curve to it. This is the first prototype. As you can see, it's a little small, but I think I'm gonna go a little longer and a little taller. And from there, I'll take a mold, and then from there, I will vacuum infuse the forged carbon with epoxy resin to get a final product. So this is the panel that is in the back of the Valarra. So this is the rear view camera, and the head unit came with just this. I'm currently designing, so this is the first prototype. I'm designing some kind of housing to make a nice cover. As you can see, this one protrudes a little too far, so I'll have to do an undercut. And I will have to terminate it somewhere back here because the body kind of does something like that. And then we have our air suspension. So these are custom AirTex air struts. They'll be powered by Airlift 3-piece setup. So Dylan's asking me why I did air ride suspension. A lot of it has to do with functionality, because the Valarra has a really long front end, and then it has that like diffuser lip. So I just can see anyone ripping that thing off at the first speed bump they see. So I just think the Valarra needs airbag suspension. So voila, here we are. The subs are gonna be living in the trunk. They're gonna be housed in an enclosure made mostly out of fiberglass. I'm gonna make the base and the back wall out of MDF. And from there, I'm gonna use fleece to drape over a 12-inch ring. And then we'll finish that off with gel coat and body match paint it to the car. So a lot of this stuff is purely because I wanted to do it. It's not for return on investment, it's just because I thought it would be really cool. You know, for example, that I really need to solder in a Zener diode, that I really need to braid it with this, that I really need to use a Zeus fastener, no. But I think it's cool, and that's what I wanted to do. You know, same thing with this bracket for the battery. Total overkill, but I think it looks so cool, so I wanted to do it. Same thing with these cable holders. I don't even know what you would call them. I didn't need to do this. I could just use a little screw with a zip tie, but I just think this would be so cool to do. You know, this thing is way overkill. You'll never see this. This lives in the passenger footwell. So you'll never see this Zeus fastener. You'll never see these custom heat shrink labels for these channels. But I just thought it'd be cool to do, so I did it. And then, you know, this LED under the mirror. Like, probably overkill, but I just wanted to do it. And, you know, these bolts. Like, this is such a small detail. I wonder if anyone even noticed that these are titanium. No, these are aluminum anodized hardware. I didn't have to do it, but I just think it's so cool. So, yeah. The mirrors have a Zeus fastener for the doors. There's also a 6-pin Zeus fastener that connects the doors for the speakers and tweeters. That way you can remove the door without having to unwire the car. The trunk has been covered in sound deadening material.